Welcome to Speak the Truth. My name is Gary Johnson. I'm the publisher and founder of BlackMenInAmerica.com. Today's show is for Black men only. I'm going to turn it over to our host. He is the 2020 NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists Award winner. He's the Pioneer Award winner. He's a walk-in sports history fact 24/7, 365, a DC radio sports talk show icon, Mr. Harold Bell.
Thank you, Gary, and welcome. Welcome to Speak the Truth. So it must be Sunday. Well, we got a special show today as Black men only. Our topic today is really surviving a police stop in America, driving, walking, or sitting while Black. So we're going to be talking to a special guest. I'm going to introduce him when I come back, but I want to go to this video first. I want to take you to the UK in London, Gary.
All right, let's do it.
Semper, a really successful bank manager. His mother Lynette has worked for the NHS for 20 years. His partner of 2 decades, Denise, works in human resources.
Yeah. He said he's too big to get kisses, you know.
And this is the story of how their happy, successful lives have been almost destroyed.
I'm accustomed to being pulled over and stuff when I'm driving cars and so on. I'm accustomed to it. I get it. Never liked it, but I understood, right? But this particular day when they've come out, it was so many police officers. And they said, we're here to arrest you for firearms. I'm like, firearms? I'm like, really? I said, no, you got the wrong person. I don't get this. I'm on my way to work. I'm a bank manager. I do not get this. And I'm arguing. I'm like trying to explain myself. I'm like, no, this can't be me.
It was the most traumatic experience ever. Being pulled over, and before you could blink, the handcuffs were on Dale, and he was pulled outside the car, and I was trying to understand what is going on. What did we do? Trying to get a sense from the cops and not understanding what's going on, and basically just being shouted at to stay in the car, be quiet. We're talking to him, having this played out before somebody actually gave me some information. We're arresting him on firearm. I'm just like, okay, I can breathe now because I know what it is, and I know we don't have any firearms, so, let's let this play out.
Police told Dale he was being arrested for possession of a firearm, and they had a warrant to search his home.
So at that time, I'm thinking, you have about 15, 20 people here. What is it that, what could I have actually done to have made something like this happen? Why are they here?
Around the same time, police were breaking into his mother's flat while she worked at the local hospital.
I worked for the NHS 20 years coming July, and to hear that guns going through my flat, I'd be crazy. And when I came home, I saw my door busted. So there's a padlock on my door. A lot of things were scattered on my house. All of my drawer with my panties, my bras, everything was pulled out, thrown on the floor. I wouldn't even wish that on my worst enemy.
Back at Dale's, the police's line of questioning, which he says he was later to learn underpinned the allegations against him, was how could he afford the things in his house? A nice car.
One of the comments the police officer even said when they came in, how did you get to have all these things? I'm like, have all of what? I don't understand. And he's like, it's clear that on one of the statements they've written, they said we're living above all means. I'm like, how can you be living above all means? You don't know what I do.
There you go, Mr. Bell.
There we go. Well, that was in the UK in London. So this thing is happening all across the world, not just in the United States. If you got a Black face, you are trouble in America or anywhere else that you might go. I'm going to introduce my special guest while we're at this. My special guest is a lifelong DC resident who has experienced all that life has offered, or not. He grew up in a poor ghetto in Washington, D.C. housing project. and he is one of 13 children that was being raised by a proud but single mom. After struggling through life, wheeling and dealing in the streets just to survive and eat, he was determined not to get caught up as a statistic in the jail system. So after graduating from high school, he went straight to college, understanding and loving his people as a young man. God had used most of his adult life reaching back to encourage and empower not just folks from his world, but all races, and to challenge their fears and have them come to an understanding of purpose. Their purpose, and they're fulfilling that, becoming all that the Creator formed them to be. I would like to welcome to Speak the Truth, a young man that I had in elementary school, and I'm proud of where he is today. Of course, Raymond Hawkins. How you doing, Hawk?
Hey, Harold. Good, man. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me, brother. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us who you brought with you, Ray.
Oh, man. In light of the topic that you're giving us, man, this struggle that we as Black people have here in the United States, and like you said, it's around the world. I brought some folks, man, that are truly life changers. Everybody that I've invited has been giving their life, man, to helping to encourage and to raise up Black men, Black awareness, a sense of self, all those things, man. So I have a lineup, man. The first guy that I want to introduce is Bobby Bennett. Bobby Bennett is a friend of mine. I've been knowing for 20, 30 years, a longtime DMV resident and entrepreneur, Bobby Bennett. Then I have Daniel Lampkins. It's my man, Daniel Lampkins, man. He's been in the basketball arena, man, since he was a kid, man. As a matter of fact, Daniel, man, was destined to go to the pros. Him and Bobby Daniel are really good friends, but as a young man, he thought that being out in the streets and wheeling dealing like me offered him more advantages, you know. So with him turning his life around, he's devoted his life. Daniel has devoted his life after leaving what he called not a lifestyle, but a death style. Because being out there willing to deal in the struggle, that's a death style, and that's what he calls it. His life has been committed to helping and assisting young folks to develop themselves in basketball and other athletics. So Daniel Lampkins is with us. Then I have my good friend, Tony Woods. Tony Woods is a music writer and music producer. Tony Woods' music has been focused on social change, man, and our plight for the future. So the work that Tony Wood has been doing in the music industry, man, is right in line with opening up our eyes, man. And what is it that we have to do, man, to bring about change? And we all use our own avenues to come about change. So that's Mr. Tony Woods. And then I have one of my good friends. We come out the Sandbox. Another guy came out the Sandbox together. Mr. Craig Jeffries. Craig Jeffries, man, we come out of Dunbar High School together. Craig, man, has took over Dunbar's football team, man. He's been the head coach for Dunbar's football team for 23, listen to this, 23 years. He's been the head coach of Dunbar High's football team. He's won 8 out of 13 city championships. Craig Jeffries, 11 straight Turkey Bowls, right? Now he's moved on, man, to be a head coach in the University of New Mexico, man, and doing great things there. So Craig Jeffries, man, I am so proud of this guy, man, and what he's doing, man, with our youth, man, our young people, like giving them self-awareness, strength, man, and an identity of who you are and what you're capable of doing, right? And then last but certainly not least, somebody that we all know very well, we've been listening to him on Sunday mornings as we get dressed to go to church. And I'm talking of none only that, my good friend Winston Cheney. Winston Cheney has been with WYCB and WHUR for the past 36 years, playing that good old down home gospel music, man, and just getting us set, not just for our day, but for our week. So I want to welcome these guys, man, and tell them thanks, man, for being on board.
Thank you, Ray. There's no doubt about it. You got a smorgasbord of legends on this show, guys who have really paid the dues, have been out there. They know what the real deal is. There ain't no faking, and that's what it's all about. So we're gonna get to them. Gary, you got a special guest. How about introducing your special guest?
Yes, sir. I've got a special guest, Mr. Jerry Doc Semper, or Dr. Semper, as he's known. And I'm going to let Doc talk about himself. All I know is Doc has told me for years that he's a former New York City cop from the Bronx. He and I have been working together for years, traveled around the country as consultants. And so, Doc Semper, you tell him about you.
Well, let's start out by saying, yeah, not only am I from the Bronx, but I worked at the precinct with the highest crime rate in the country, 41st precinct, Fort Apache, the Bronx, back in the 70s.
Fort Apache.
And it was so bad back then that when we graduated the police academy, our first 3 weeks of patrol, we patrolled with pistols with no ammunition. We weren't allowed to have bullets. And we made arrests and we were out there. We had heart, but no ammunition. If you were caught with a bullet, you'd be fired. They wanted the police presence more than they wanted us to be able to bring down anybody. I say that to say that the way it is now, it's kind of a cakewalk for the police. Unfortunately, we're afraid of police, but back then, trust me, the police were afraid. They had bounties on cops. We had 2 Bronx cops actually gunned down. They used to make false crimes, and then the cops would show up and they would shoot at us, etc. In addition to that, I worked in community relations in the New York City Police Department. I also worked in internal affairs. I went to Howard University and graduated with a doctorate in law, criminal justice background. I've got 18 years of teaching African-American history at College Park, University of Maryland. And I say all that to say, and in addition, I helped write and craft the community-oriented policing curriculum. And then I became the principal trainer for that body of work. I say all that to say, I'm gonna give you the end of the story right now. The only people that can fix the police are the police. It has to do with attitude. We got people coming into the job that are afraid of us. They're afraid of Black people. I mean, you'd have to be a fool not to realize that's the problem. And they believe all that hype. Every Black guy is a criminal and every Black guy can fight, even if you got a suit and tie on, they're afraid of you. And the problem is we don't have what we call commitment to whatever organization we're in. There's a guy doing this program out in Sacramento, California, and he's having success. That is, the top down has to believe we need to stop it, but we have so many rules in place to help the police. As a person who also worked in internal affairs in the police department and in candidate investigation, now trust me, you have not gonna get anybody that's had all of those kind of backgrounds. Candidate investigation, internal affairs, street patrol, undercover narcotics, and regular patrol. What's missing is recruitment is where the problem starts. When we bring people in, you see it all the time in sports. You bring a new coach into a team that's been losing, and whatever he has, Mr. Winston, you can bear me on this one, that's what makes the difference. Who's the coach? And unfortunately, in many of our departments, we don't have people that know how to coach and turn it around and make pride the #1 thing. The second part is we don't have enough punishment. Now, some departments are changing. Maryland just came with a sweeping on protection of police officers. This whole thing that if a police officer does something, he doesn't have to talk to anybody for 72 hours. As a lawyer, I can tell you, boy, that is a big advantage. Because in 72 hours, if you can't come up with a story, you a fool. Now, whether we believe it or not is another story, but you got, man, come on. Doesn't every kid wish they had 72 hours before they tell you what happened? That's the problem. So the problem is right down here. 1, a fear of people that look like us. 2, very little punishment. And 3, from the top down, which is what community policing was all about. How do we get them to understand and have pride in the organization and not do? But it takes the police to police themselves. Last but not least, I've worked with guys that I had to actually pull aside and take to a whole lot other officers, and we took off our gun belts. One of the problems for me was I came into the police department right out of the military, so I wasn't afraid. And we had to actually exchange touching in a way that made a difference. Police can police other police officers, and that's the piece that's missing. We have to have pride. We have to treat it like we do it as a team. Bring in a coach that wants to change the attitude and say anything you do against us reflects on all of us. That's the way we did it in the military. That's the way we do it on better teams. Everybody's responsible for each other. Did I give you enough?
That's fine, Don. That's fine. We'll come right back. We'll come back to you. What I want to do now, I want to introduce my other people here on the show, and everybody's going to get a chance to speak. Everybody. We make sure everybody speaks, so You ain't got to go into a long dialogue. We'll get back to you once you come in. Jacques, tell us a little about you, Jacques Chalvier. Tell us about you.
Hey, Harold, I'm gonna get Raymond Hawkins to teach you how to pronounce my name. Is Chevalier.
Chevalier. French, man. I speak no French.
I got you. Well, look, I was born a DC general, so I don't speak for 2 paragraphs of it. But I will say that I'm proud that we have so many Black men in this country, and certainly in the DMV, that about trying to, like Raymond mentioned earlier, everybody try to do some part. I ran for office a couple times, and I tried to bring out how corrupt the system is. I never got elected because I was just a little bit too militant. I have been stopped by the police as well. But I will say this, and this is something a lot of people don't want to hear. We have to tell our youth that, you got to quit bucking on the police. If they actually do a little something, that's not going to kill you, you're going to do it and try to comply. And so with that said, I'm going to shut up, but I just wanted to get that in because we're not hearing enough of that right now.
Okay. Charles, come on in, Charles.
Thank you for this remarkable panel of men, Black men, and accomplished Black men at that. My name is Charles Hopkins. I'm the president of the National Action Network, John R. Lewis, chapter in Prince George's County. Me, myself, and City Davis organized it. My primary objective in terms of the police and the community is to take the approach of trying to educate the community, just like Jacques just said, educate the community, understand the relationship between the community and the police. We know right now that it's a disconnect, but it's primarily because the police has historically been in a space that was more oppressive than being supportive. So now we recognize that with the George Floyd and other killings that's going on, that people are getting the social consciousness about the police. And with that being said, we're trying to organize the community and understanding the relationship between the police and the community. That when they say serve and protect, they saying they should serve and protect the community and not serve and protect corporate America. So that's where we at. Thank you.
All right, Sydney Davis. Take yourself off mute, Sydney. Take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I want to just acknowledge the strength and the spirit of all of the brothers that are here, that I'm very thankful to be in the presence of. A lot of history, and we know history when it moves itself or someone denies the history for making the power of the Black communities that much stronger to protect their own situations. There's a lot of deterioration. The police department has just been one agency that has been very destructive in many multiple ways, to send them to prison, to do whatever they think is right for them to do in the organized way that they do it, and nobody has a plan to distract how they do business in our Black communities, with people having no jobs and elders needing to be cared for. And so there's a lot that we have to put in place by not concentrating so much on what they are not doing. So I believe that we have the power to do it, and we just need to connect it in such a way that we show the force and the strength that God has given us.
Okay. All right. Thanks, and we'll be back to you. How about our youngest member in this forum? And I'm talking about CJ, Chris Johnson. Come on in, Chris.
Hey, everybody, CJ here, just another contributor for Black Men in America. But yeah, my only thoughts is following up on what Doc Semper had to say, which was the police have to want to change. Like, the police have to want to reform themselves. And right now it seems like the culture in policing in America is that they don't want to change. Not only do they not want to change, but they're aggressively against change. They will retaliate when you try to push for that change. So again, if the police can only fix the police, then we're in a bad state of affairs, because it doesn't look like they want to have any parts of any type of reform.
All right. What I want to do, I'm gonna start back with Raymond. We got to understand something, man, about police or law enforcement. I don't know where they get this attitude, us against them. You understand? That they are being paid to protect us. Not only that, they were not drafted into this job. This is a job that they volunteered for. You understand? When they come with that stuff talking about us against them, that's all in your mind. If the job is too tough for you, go get an ice cream truck. If you know it's too tough. I've been in police business for 50 years. I've had more community forums than anybody. And I've seen my brothers in law enforcement, U.S. Marshal and DC cop. I was right there to watch what happens with the thin blue line and code of silence that they got. You understand? This stuff is real, man. And until we change it from the inside, it has to be changed with the FOP, which is the Ku Klux Klan. You hear what I'm saying? They are the Ku Klux Klan. Until all of a sudden we see all these black chiefs now, they're part of the problem. They just brought in a black chief in Prince George's County from Dallas, Texas, one of the racist departments in the country. They found 168 black cops on Facebook using racial slurs on the same deputy chief that they bring in here to make chief in PG County. He was there. He was there when they sent that robot in to blow up that brother that had shot cops. He was a part of that. So we're still dealing with this same old mentality. We got to change it. It has to be changed. You got to start at the top with getting that Ku Klux Klan out of there, man. They got to come out. You don't get them out, it's going to be the same old thing over and over again with quality immunity. Just think about do we get quality immunity when we make a crime, when we do a crime? Hell no. Okay, Ray, come on in, Ray.
Hey, thanks, Harold. You mentioned this thing about as it relates to the police force, this us against them thing. I'm going to have to beg to differ with you because it's never been us against them. You don't hear about us. You don't hear about us shooting cops. You don't hear about us jumping cops and beating them up and doing all kinds of things to them. It's always them against us, not us against them. They've always attacked the black community. I was probably 10 years ago. I was down in Woodbridge. Me and my friend Daniel and a few of us are involved in this hand dance thing. And I was down in Woodbridge probably about 10 years ago. Now, it was I was leaving the event about 1:32 in the morning. I was driving a new model Mercedes-Benz. I had on a suit and tie. I made a turn off of the main road, man, to hit 95 going north. It was a dark road, and the police pulled behind me and turned their lights on. I'm on a dark road at 2 in the morning, a black man. I know who I am in this country, right? So I immediately called my lady, and I said, baby, look, the police is behind me. I want you to record what's going on before I pull over and stop. I was scared to stop, but there was no lighted areas. And what I would always recommend that if the police come behind you in an unpopulated or dark area, try to put your hazards on and pull to a gas station, pull somewhere where there's light, where there may be video cameras, right? So, but I pulled over the side of the road. The officers walked up to the car, one on the driver's side and one on the back on the passenger side with his hands on his gun. 2 o'clock in the morning, and the one that came to my car rolled the windows down. He didn't ask for my license, registration, anything. He asked me, was there any drugs, weapons, or dead bodies in a brand new Mercedes and a black, somewhat distinguished black man in a suit and tie on, not a thug with his head flipped around like you with chains around his neck and looking crazy and blasting rap music. Asked me if there were any drugs, weapons, or dead bodies in the car. I said, sweetheart, did you hear what Officer KB Johnson says, badge number 1506? She said, I sure do hear every word, sweetheart, and I'm recording every word that's being said. That white man's face, man, went from white to beet red. I said, officer, what can I do for you? He said, you made the left turn without a signal. You made the left turn without a signal. He was so mad when they asked me that. I said, you know what? I just left all that stuff at your daughter's house. I was so pissed with him. I knew my girl was recording. I said, do I have any drugs, weapons, or dead bodies? I said, no, I left all that stuff. I left it all at your daughter's house. I just left your daughter's house and left it all there. Right? But you made a very valid point about these cops wasn't recruited. They signed up for the job. Right. And a lot of them are from the South. and a lot of them do hate. I would venture to say a majority of them do hate blacks, and they're Ku Klux Klan in the blue uniforms that come to wreak havoc on the black community legally. And so, yeah, there is some things that has to be done about it. I think that we should only speak for 2 or 3 minutes because we have a lot of people here and be able to come back and forth. So, so that's where we are right now.
We'll come back to you, Ray. We'll get back to you. Let me clear one thing. I'm talking about that's their attitude, us against them. That's their attitude. That's what I'm talking. That's their attitude. That not that I'm thinking that we think that. No. Exactly. Bobby Bennett, come on in, Bobby. Bobby
yes,
Bennett.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How y'all doing?
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, brother.
Good, good. I tell you, brothers, it's so good to be involved in this communication here. But you know, as I was telling Raymond on yesterday, this has always been going on, this brutality against black. But the thing that has come to pass now is that we have videos, phones, we have everything have cameras on it now. So people know that they're going to be recording there, but this is nothing new. I'm from the South. I came to Washington about 50 years ago. And I've seen the difference in police mentality. They are nasty, and they are nothing but Klan that have turned in their robes and put on the blue hat and the uniform.
Say that, brother.
So don't expect nothing more than the police. There are some good policemen out there, but as the gentleman said, police have to police themselves.
That's right. Thank you, Bobby. Charles, come on in, Charles.
I'm a victim of this police. I don't know if y'all remember Terrence Johnson, but prior to Terrence Johnson, I got arrested, and the police department in PG County was known as the Death Squad. I only found out about that when Terrence Johnson's case came out, and I had got Monday had to do had a Freedom of Information Act and got the report talking about how the PG County police was going around setting people up and killing them. So I understand the relationship between us and them. And I understand what you were saying, Harold, about their attitude towards it, as I understand the brother's attitude, saying like, yeah, it's all about them. And when we look at the police, it's nothing we can really do. Like you in the dark road, only thing you praying is that, like, okay, can somebody record this? And when I got found guilty, only thing I was in Calvert County, only thing I was thinking about, am I gonna make it back to the county jail alive? That's all I was thinking about. I ain't care. They gave me a life bid. I ain't care nothing about none of that. Only thing I was thinking about, am I going to make it back to the county jail alive? Because I had a police charge. That's why I got found guilty of. So in terms of understanding the relationship between the police and the community, this is why we have to become more proactive in educating the community about the responsibility of the police to us. Once we educate the community, then we'll start the community to become more proactive in saying, I didn't call you here in military dress to come and get this issue. I called you here as a person to serve and protect. If you're not going to serve me and protect me, then get the hell away from me.
Okay,
can I add a few words to that?
Hold on, Dan. We're coming back to you, Doc. We will come back up to you. Daniel, come on in, Daniel. Unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're on. You got it.
Greetings, everybody.
Hey, what's up, Lamp?
Yeah, tell you a few things about me, man. I dropped out of school in the 8th grade. I'm a native Washingtonian. One day I was up by the Wingate House, and there was a man playing tennis on the tennis court. Matter of fact, Harold, you spoke at his funeral. His name is Bad News Barnes.
Oh yeah.
News saw me play. And News asked me why was I not in school. And News became like a brother, a friend, a father, an uncle. What I'm talking about is he took me under his wing. And then another guy, Dr. Joe Carr, took me under his wing. Ed Epps took me under his wing. Bobby D took me under his wing. And I was able to leave. I was raised in on a government type test site, just like Raymond, a housing project. If you don't know, A housing project is a government test site. Don't tell everybody. And what happened, you know, I was able to go away to a junior college, go to school, play basketball. Then I went to Southern Illinois. I wanted to play pro ball, but I wound up to JoJo and Hawkeye. I wound up. Yeah, Hawk came out the same housing project. All I'm just mentioning is that how Hawk wound up in a federal institution and how I wound up in a federal institution. 1985, I got convicted in the United States District Courthouse of unlawful manufacturing, possession with intent to distribute, and conspiracy. A federal judge by the name of Norma Holloway Johnson gave me 20 years. How do you go from a university of higher learning to a correctional institution? And what happened, Raymond mentioned something. Ray said, you know, I had an addiction to a lifestyle, but after being released, I know that it was a death style. And so I haven't sold no narcotics in 30-some years.
Yes, sir.
Because it's an inside job. I had to change. I want to mention this, and please, I don't want to be long-winded, but that former president, he said he was a law and order president. So what do you do when law is out of order? I understand the law and order president, but what about when the law is out of order? Now, as you well know, DC is divided into 8 wards. Make the difference. They don't have the problems in Ward 1, Ward 2, 3 that we have in 7, 8, and 6. So they have a different type of policing.
Yeah.
In the district. Because they believe, you know, some people say the District of Columbia, and some people say a dysfunctional city. And when I think about policing, I like what the minister. I like at the Million Man March when he had the brothers to take a vow. I say your name. We can't delegate the responsibility to someone else to come into our communities and to protect us and provide. The responsibility lie with us. But we don't run our communities. What we run in our communities is barbershops, beauty salons, and churches. Amen. Outside of that, foreigners own all the businesses in the Black community. And there's a lot of friction that comes with that because we don't have that empowerment. And so I truly believe, in closing, that the police department never had really much respect for us as a people.
That's right.
You know, I hear about the cameras, Rodney King, all of that was recorded. But the system of racism, white supremacy, put that case in before a white judge, a white jury, and they were found not guilty. Because the system operates a certain way. So I think the system needs to be overhauled from top to bottom, because they're out of order. Now I'm gonna close with that. I'm gonna leave it on for somebody else. Go ahead.
Coming to you, Winston Cheney. Come on in, Winston.
Winston Cheney.
Hey, fellas. Thanks
My
for
brother.
Let me tell you a little bit about myself. You know, I came to town in 1980, and I've been on air ever since. Met Harold Bell. When I came to town, 2 of the greatest activists in the city were Peter Green and Harold Bell. Peter Green and Harold Bell. I was Peter Green's board operator.
Yeah.
Until the day he died. So I knew him real well. Got to know Harold Bell. These guys were the activists in town. But
come on,
like Harold, we get to interview people that a lot of people don't. I got a chance to interview either a sergeant or lieutenant in the Prince George's County Police Department. Brought him into the studio. He came in with all his stripes and his keyboard, you know, his clipboard and everything. And I asked him all the hard questions. I said, as a sergeant or lieutenant, what's the first thing we do when a police officer pulled up behind us and put lights on. Now, and I wish I had a split screen with the gentleman from New York. He can verify some of this. The guy said, okay, the first thing you do is turn your lights on in the car. I said, what does that do? He said, first of all, it may not do anything particular, but it shows that you are trying to cooperate. Okay? He said, it shows that you are trying to cooperate.
I like it.
Show your hands. Okay, show your hands.
Mm-hmm.
That also shows you're trying to cooperate. I mean, not 100%, but it shows you're trying to. And it's all about a temperament when you're dealing with police officers.
See.
If they approach the car and you give them a bad attitude, you'll get a bad attitude back. Now, here's what I told him. Like what Raymond just said. Raymond said, I was on a dark road. And I said, well, Sergeant, I heard that we can drive to a light location. He said, yes, you have a right to drive to a light location. I said, sir, it's easier said than done. I said, it's easier said than done for a black man. I said, because when we don't stop immediately, we get the hell beat out of us. He said, yeah. He said, you got that right, and you might be true. It might be true. I said, but for us, it ain't that easy.
See.
Now, if somebody wanna discuss that, we can. But I wish I had a guy from New York on with us who can verify that. Okay, yeah, I want him to. He said you have a right to drive to a light location like Raymond did, like the guy from Windsor did. But I said, when we don't stop immediately, now we got one strike against us and a bad attitude. So I've never been arrested, and I haven't had a bad experience with police officers because I know the temperament, that they expect, or how to treat police officers. And I learned that from that interview with that police sergeant.
Okay, Craig, come on in, Craig.
My man.
How's everybody doing, man?
All right, Craig. Congratulations, man. Congratulations for a successful career, man. You've done great.
That's what I want to clear one thing up, though. I'm not in New Mexico. I was only there for 1 year, and now I'm at Oxon Hill High School. I've been out there for 8 years, and
okay.
Joined coaching at Oxon Hill High School, and dealing with the kids in the community out there. So yeah, it was great. But thanks for having me on with you guys, and just listen to what people, what you guys are talking about in terms of, what's going on today and what we've been going through, and it's been going on for years and years. And either one thing about Dunbar High School where I grew up, either you were good or you were bad to a certain degree. And a lot of guys at Dunbar joined the police force. And it was funny how they keep those guys out of the communities where
they live,
where they could be, where they can know people, where they help their communities out. They would send them other places and send, police officers that weren't familiar with our community to come in and police us. And the only way they knew how to police us is to intimidate and, show us fear, So, I was fortunate, man, because the Boys and Girls Club, throughout Washington, D.C., they had police officers there that would come in. But I've had quite a few incidents with the police, and all of them were police officers were just aggressive towards me. I got stopped one day about a half a block from my house. And they made me get out the car, me and my friends. First, we had to show our hands. They gave us these instructions that was like some type of game, Like, put your left hand outside the door, put your right hand up on, I'm like, so I'm afraid not to do anything wrong. And they got me out the car, they cuffed me. And I'm like 25 yards from my house. I'm saying, I live right there. This is my car, what did I do? And they cuffed me, set me on the ground. And they asked me to keep me there for like 20 minutes. You know, they searched my car. I wouldn't let them search my car, even though I didn't have anything in there. I gave them all the information that they needed. And they asked me had my car been stolen. You know, after they found out, you know, I guess they ran my information, see I'd never been in trouble, you know, really had a moving violation. And after they couldn't find anything, they asked me, well, had this car ever been stolen? And my car was stolen. It had been stolen like 3 years ago. And I've been stopped since then, but they were trying to find something just to detain me, to, you know, to give me a hard time. So they tried to say, well, your car was stolen 3 years ago and, you know, went out the system. I said, that can't be the case because, you know, I've been stopped, you know, since then. I didn't have any problems. But I'm just concerned about what's going on there because it's coming to a head and we gotta do something to I guess, to find a way to help the youngins and or just everybody who's either black or brown, you know, deal with these guys to try to stop provoking them and they already come out with a negative attitude. But we got to find a way to kind of curtail what's going on with this. So you know, I appreciate all you guys sharing this information. You know, some of my run-ins, you know, it hasn't been as drastic as what you guys experienced, but you know, I've seen it from all of my friends, and I've seen it, and I know it exists, and you know, I've been harassed, and you know, it just hasn't come to a stop, man. So we just got to come up with a way and a solution to really be able to help our people, you know, deal with what's going on, and two, you know, whether it's legislative or just giving them information, and be a little more consoling to each other to make this happen. But that's pretty much where I'm at with this, man.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question, Craig. Hey, Harold?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask Craig one question, man, because the whole time he's been speaking, I'm thinking about what he's been doing for the past 23 years, like in the inner city, with winning all these championships. Craig, so my question to you is, these kids that you've been coaching, now they're not from the best neighborhoods and from the best homes, and yet, man, out of 13 city championships you've developed in these young black men, because these are 95% young black kids. What is it that you've done, man, to instill or develop in them this winning attitude, in spite of their communities, their neighborhoods, all the atrocities the young black men are subjected to? How is it that you've been able to instill in these kids this winning attitude? Can you talk to us for that for a real quick minute?
Well, you know, kids want instruction, and kids want structure. And, you know, athletics, whether it's basketball or football, give them some structure, give them something that they can do, that they can relate to, and it keeps them away from, you know, being in trouble or being in a house where, you know, is dysfunctional, or, you know, being around the guys that are bored and want to try to, you know, look for trouble. Now, it wasn't just me, though. I was in a fortunate situation growing up, like you said, you know, in Surgeon Quarter, where, you know, we had a community. You know, we had summer job programs for the kids with the Manbury Summer Youth Program.
Absolutely.
Different community support, you know, help all of those kids in terms of, you know, leading them to do positive things. Like, you know, I wanted to hang with, which I called the bad boys back in the day, but they knew I was an athlete.
You couldn't hang with us.
they wouldn't let me hang with them. They said, hey man, no, you go, you know, play basketball or football or baseball to do what you need to do.
Couldn't hang with us.
But I just thought that giving them guys some structure and trying to give them something that was not on a low level, but I tried to raise the bar, man. I got a lot of information from college coaches, NFL coaches, to communicate to my kids, you know, this is what you got to do to get to the next level. And, you know, kids were really, really hungry back then. You know, that's the difference between what I see now and, you know, the kids back then. You know, even though these kids are bigger, stronger, faster, you know, they were hungry. You know, they wanted to get out. They wanted to find a way. And if you look at boxing, you know, to me, there's not a lot of African-American or black boxers, you know, trying to fight their way out of their neighborhoods. because, you know, back then they were hungry and they had to fight. You know, now, you know, it's like they said, they sleeping on satin sheets, you know, and they hard to get up and train and work out when you're doing that. So I guess, you know, my giving back to my community, I took it personal because I grew up in that area, you know, Southern Quarters, Dunbar High School zone. And, you know, I could relate to people that came out of that community like I did. So kids were able to listen to me because, like I said, you know, I was one of them. Just like the police officers not one of us, because they send the ones that come from our area, you know, somewhere else, you know, send them uptown or send them across town where they don't know. Like one of my buddies was a police officer that I knew that worked in my community. You know, I would show him some respect and he would look out for us. You know, he wouldn't body slam us or throw us up against the wall or just stop us randomly. You know, he'd call us out by name. Hey, you know, Craig, you know, what you doing? What's up, man? You know, whatever the case may be. So I just think, you know, policing should be really a little personal to the communities and they can see us for who we are. But if you bring these guys from Northern Virginia, or they were bringing police officers in our area all the way from West Virginia, you know, to be on the police force and police our area, and they didn't care anything about us. And when they did, their shift was over, they went back to where they were going.
Yeah. Okay, Doc, hold on, Doc. Come on in, Doc. You've been sitting there.
Couple of things. Number one, I completely agree with Winston with respect to how we need to be. If somebody approaches you and they have a bad attitude, you showing another bad attitude is not going to help. I have been pulled over in 15 states. And just let me just say this, there's sometimes even a police officer gets stopped by the police, and if it doesn't go right, he can get jammed up. So the first thing I would suggest is a class that I was teaching at Enterprise Estates. I taught it for about 8 years. Compliance. Do what they ask you to do so it doesn't get worse. You can win later. You want to make sure that you do whatever it is it takes before a supervisor shows up, because that is when things usually ease up. That was the one thing that made Rodney King so different, in that it was a supervisor on scene. This is from the police side of the house. The things that started changing in the 69, 70, 71, civil rights and the Vietnam War, both of which I participated in. That's when it became them against us. I started college at Fordham University back in 1969, and the cops hated college students because they felt it was them against the rest of us, and basically the community. Believe me, before that, it was not like that. I grew up in New York City in the Bronx. We didn't hate the cops. In fact, they were the only friends you had. I agree, we need officers that are more in touch with the communities. We lost that when we put them in cars, air conditioning, radio, hot damn, don't even have to talk to people. I did foot patrol. If it was up to me, I'd make sure every officer had to walk a beat, get his butt out the car and talk to the people in the community. That would be one way to change it. But it doesn't do us any good to show resistance. I agree, when they roll up on me, and they have done it, the first thing I do is smile. I psych them out. I'm not trying to look like a badass. It's not one I can win. So what happens is, if you already know that they want to have an attitude with you, then don't show that attitude. You got to psych them out. You got to be like you from the street. Smile. Hi, officer, how can I help you? Well, sir, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm not aware of that. I'm serious. You got to eat crow for a minute so you get out of this situation. That's
yeah, you do.
Another thing, let me tell you. Here's another thing. I teach de-escalation techniques to police officers. I teach them what they don't know, how to simmer down, how to take it easy. If they're already afraid of us, and if they're looking for a battle, and you give them that battle, then it's on you. I have smiled at times when I didn't feel like smiling, just to get out the situation. Show your hands and do whatever they tell you, as dumb as it might seem. Because as you drive away with no ticket and nothing further happening, you will feel better about it. We need more opportunities for our young people to be involved in programs. I was involved in a program in New York City, almost like Boys and Girls Club. Some of the programs you guys have in the county and in the district. If you want to do something, let's have more programs, because what the kids want is somebody that cares about them. And it does not have to be basketball and football, because I started a chess club. And let me tell you something, brother. You teach the young black kids how to play chess, they start feeling beaten on their chest. Check it out. You can all do that. You can learn it and then teach it to the kids. They want caring adults. So while we're beating the drums about what's not happening, I'm going to tell you, we're not doing enough with respect to our kids. Every one of you that is not involved in a children's program, you need to say, well, I get to do it. And incidentally, I work with upward bound students now and have been doing it for the last 10 years. I didn't give up on the kids. You got to get it. What happened?
Okay, guys, listen up. We're running out of time. I want to come back to Sydney. Sydney, come on in.
What the conversation is has been very, 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 very healthy. The deal is, if this brother Hawkins and his brother Sumter, they have experience, they've been exposed. The brother Greg Jeffries, he's been exposed. Do we teach youngsters the currents of racism and how racism operates to their disadvantage? What does a current of racism look like when you are complying? And then you subsequently find how racism is embedded and deep, that you can't touch that. That is an embedded culture that they bring to the table. These crackers are going to shoot deliberately for no fucking reason at all. No reason, no justification. They're killing these young black brothers and sisters without any impunity at all. And who's going to stand for? You got a current of racism that is individual, that is institution, that is covert, that is overt. So racism and these currents beneath the culture and exchanges that we have in education. They don't talk about racism, the currents of racism, how to prevent yourself, and how to identify the current of racism so you have better protection. If you teach it, then you can manifest the community to have the kind of protection because they can identify when the crackers are doing something wrong. But if we're not teaching it, it's an impossibility. There is an impossibility for us to understand how racism operates. For example, we seen the height of racism at the United States Capitol when this cracker Trump took over. He emboldened them crackers to go forth and to take charge and to demonstrate that kind of ignorance. So how do you combat that kind of ignorance when you don't understand the current of the racism? You got these black people who are in charge of these municipalities in Prince George County. They facilitate the instrument by which youngsters are being removed out of a consciousness of who they are, because teachers are not teaching them structure. Like Greg said, they need structure. I agree with Greg, but the current of racism is an abstract that has not been addressed. The currents of racism, and they're foul all the time. In the wee hours of the morning, like Hawk says, they stop them on a dark street. That's how crackers operate. Fearful. Them crackers are fearful of the divine that God has made us as a black people. Police force or whatever. If you don't understand the goddamn currents of racism, then we always are subject to be a victim.
Hold it right there, Sidney. Hold it right there. Gary, run that video of that lieutenant, and we show exactly what Sidney is talking about. Run that lieutenant.
All right.
Run it.
That happened after the incident began to settle down in terms of the high emotions at play, and the victim here is standing by a car, and the officers are now trying to explain what happened. This exchange makes me wonder why he's only suing for $1 million. Take a look.
I understand you want to get to a well-lit area, a well-lit area. I get that, but when we follow you that long, look at the climate this day, and against everybody, against us, against y'all.
Us against y'all.
Alexander,
hey man, cut that, Gary. That is a good example of a brother, lieutenant in the army. You can't tell me, man, that you will comply. They still will shoot you and take advantage of it. That's exactly what they're doing. I've been in police community relations for 50 years, and their attitudes are not changing. They are shooting people, man. They shot the brother in the garage just before in December, man, in Ohio. He coming out of the garage with his hands up, he shot him. 13-year-old kid got his hands in the threw his gun away, got his hands in the air. They shot him. The boy in Minnesota, 20 years old. She talking about 26 years on the job. She gonna mistake her pistol for a laser gun. Come on, man. Yeah, let me tell you something, what you gotta do. You gotta go, and it don't make any difference. I went down to the DC City Council when they were getting ready to confirm Peter Nugent. He was nothing but a thug. He had a domestic violence history. He was found on the street drunk. I'm sitting right beside him, and I told everybody on the city council, this man ain't got no business being the chief of police in Washington, D.C. One city council person believed what I said. Bowser, who I gave written information on this guy, Eleanor Holmes Norton, I gave written information on this guy, and Murray Chase. They knew what they were getting, man, and they made him chief anyway. He slips out the back door and goes to Frederick without letting Bowser know, anybody on the city council. And guess what? He's right next door to us, man. The Ferguson next door is PG County, what was written up in the Political magazine. You cannot go and find that story now because they done deleted it out. They don't want you to read that story, the Ferguson next door, PG County. So we're talking about, man, we're being taken advantage of our black skin. And I don't care how much you cooperate. They still are taking advantage of us. Come on in. Now I want this kid to come in now. CJ, come on in. You've been sitting there. Come on, CJ.
Yeah, there's a lot. I hear a lot about young people, but I feel like people don't ask young people directly enough about, how much they know. Because I feel like a lot of young people do know about the currents of racism, and that's why they're so frustrated. And that's why, as Mr. Bell was saying, they don't comply because they've been in those situations. They've complied, and they still have had some adverse, outcomes. And I think something that gets overlooked is why a lot of people want to defund the police is they want to rethink policing in general. A lot of these tragic stories you're talking about, they started with victimless crimes or traffic stops or selling loose cigarettes or something that was literally a victimless crime or something that could have been solved with a ticket or something that had armed people show up and were able to abuse that power. So when they talk about rethinking policing, it's about getting police away from victimless crimes, getting them away from pointless traffic stops and things we don't need an armed person to show up for to escalate a situation, and to keep the police so they can use those resources so we don't have to over budget the police, and we can use those resources so they have the resources they need for dangerous things, for uses that the community has. But when the community feels terrorized by the police, saying that they need more money for training is not an adequate response. That's like saying, oh, Al-Qaeda is terrorists, but we'll just give them some money for better training. That's how some of these communities feel. They don't feel protected and served by their police forces. So it's ridiculous that our tax dollars are going to that, and that the solution when these police kill people with impunity is to let's give them more money for better training. That's a roundabout way to reward them for terrorizing communities.
Gary, come on up, Gary. You haven't said anything the whole show. Gary, come on in.
Yeah, there are a couple things that I guess the insidiousness of the racism here is every system has a need to replicate itself. And that's part of our problem. The system just replicates itself. When it comes to Black officers, because I'm a former federal agent, for some Black officers, their lesson about Black people is the same as the white officer. And so they have some of the same fears, they get into the same things, and then they end up being acting almost just like the white officers. But everything that I agree with everything that's been said today, particularly what Doc is saying about community policing and foot patrols and getting out there and being a part of the community and being seen as part of the community.
Okay.
Let me say one thing.
I want everybody to take 1 minute. I'm gonna come all the way around. Jacques, let's start with you. Come on, Jacques.
Very quick, I just want to say I was 17 years of age. I had waived, the county, state of Maryland waived jurisdiction on me. I got sent to the penitentiary at the age of 17 for an $80 to $1 armed robbery that had to be split 3 ways. I got my GED while I was in the penitentiary. Got out in 1975, never looked back. So I've always carried this bitterness about me. And I've also always been aware of just how racist the system is. And when I see people doing all these other kind of crimes now, I know some of the other guys may have went to, the penitentiary for a much larger fare. And I understand that, but I'm just saying, I had a very, very bad situation happen in the legal system with me. And I've seen police brutality. I know how they are. But I've also come to the conclusion that I'm going to beat them at their own game. I'm going to psych them out. When they pull me over, officer, you know what? I want to apologize to you for me being stupid and running the light. And 9 times out of 10, if you bullshit them and psych them out, they'll let you go. But there's some that no matter what you do, they will kick your goddamn ass. With that said, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, Ray, come on. You got a minute, Ray. Come on, Ray.
Okay,
Ray.
this is what I want to say. As we was talking about the young military guy that the police just abused terribly. They told him, get out the car. He said, I'm afraid to get out of the car. You know what they said in response to that? You should be. You should be. So what does that say about the police? Second thing is this. While we have this continual problem with the police abusing us, killing us in the street and doing everything, when these white cops kill black people in the streets cold-blooded, they're rewarded. They're rewarded and they title it administrative leave. So in other words, you kill a nigga, you get you a free vacation with pay, right? And then when they go out to the justice system, as it's called, like this case right now, there are 8 white jurors. There are 8 white jurors on this panel, right? There are 8 out of 12 white jurors. I think it's 1 black. But there are 8 white jurors on this panel, all white. 8 of them, right? And so the deck is stacked against us, man, right? The deck is stacked is terrible. But we got to do what we can to change this thing. Stop talking about it and start being about it. Thanks.
Amen. Bobby Bennett, come on in, Bobby.
Yeah, I just like to say this is a good panel discussion. But I like to say, whenever we see a brother pulled over by a police officer, let's take our time to stop somewhere in video because you never know, you might save his life.
Right.
Right. That's right. Okay, Winston Chaney, 1 minute.
1 minute. I've enjoyed, look, not only delivering, but listening to all these knowledgeable guys. And the last thing I want to say is, and what the brother said earlier, he said, if you are stopped by police, and all police officers don't have ill intentions, if one stops you and one that does not have ill intentions, don't give them an ill intention. In other words, they all don't come to kill you. Don't make them kill you. Comply and get home and deal with it later. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Winston. Charles, come on in, Charles.
Yeah, as the president of the National Action Network, John R. Lewis, one of our points is that we look at the police, so we basically observe what the police are doing. I want to resonate with CJ said earlier that when the police is resistance to change, that we're not gonna get right now. They're in an attitude of like, well, y'all doing something to us, we're gonna respond in kind. So as John R. Lewis National Action Network, we're advocating police watch. We're advocating organizing the community to understand the relationship between them and the police, to educate them on some of these things that we've been talking about today, as far as how the relationship, how you have a relationship with them. But more importantly, stop calling the police for victimless crimes, because when they coming in looking for somebody to deal with. They ain't coming in, they don't have a victimless crime mentality. They got a military occupied mentality. When you call them, they coming in with military dress. They coming in with 1 in 10, 1 in 10 only. That's a problem I gotta resolve. Ain't no such thing as the problem to resolve. So we'll say organize, organize, organize.
Okay, thank you, Charles. All right, Daniel, come on, Daniel.
I like to, Sydney, I agree with you. I had an opportunity to speak with the former Attorney General, Eric Holder. And I asked him, I said, is it true that you made a statement that are we a nation of cowards because we can't talk about racism? He said, yes, I said it. And I caught hell for that statement. Now, they're talking about racism, white supremacy. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing says racism is a system. It operates in 9 areas of human activity: education, economics, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So it's a system. The Department of Justice, they have something they call the Bureau of Prison. And the Bureau of Prison have built institutions throughout this country to keep people incarcerated. So when will the Department of Justice do something to dismantle this police activity? That's what I like to say about it. You got to do something about the system because it exists. You got to do it politically. Until you change the system, we continue to have bodies. And like CJ, you said it. Black man get killed for walking, talking, sitting.
That's right.
Man for no.
Okay, man. All right, Craig, come on in, Craig. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
Lampkins was right on point. Things had to be changed through legislation and through laws, because if you look at it as like, I teach. You remember when you went to school that the teacher will beat your butt if you did something wrong, gave you the paddle. Now teachers can't touch kids, can't yell at kids, can't be derogatory towards them, because the laws have changed to make it so that you cannot do those things. It should be the same things against police officers. You know, hey, you held accountable for pulling that trigger, for of grabbing your taser instead of your gun. You know, that's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you your job, it's gonna cost you your pension, it's gonna cost you some time in jail, and they can do that the same way they've done it in other professions, like education. So this legislation, laws.
Amen. Amen, Craig. All right, Doc, I know it'll be hard for you for 1 minute, but we're running out of time. Come on in, Doc.
All I can say is that the only thing we can do is spend a lot of time talking about the elephant in the room. Racism is there. So I don't know what good that does us. We know it's there. It's been there since World War II. They used to hang soldiers that were in uniform. They lynch them in uniform. Taking videos, I think that does help. So get yourself involved. But more than that, we need to teach our young people not to be belligerent. Now, I hear you, they could get shot anyway, but at least you will have done all you can not to. I'd rather you come home with your feelings hurt than me have to go down to the hospital and get you out. I'm telling you, that makes a big difference. Now, you can go up against them and get nasty and when they stop me, I smile. I'm with the Winston School, I smile. I'm not trying to get nothing started. And like I said, I've been stopped in 15 states and I haven't had any problems because I put a facial expression. There's a thing in policemen. In the first 15 seconds as he approaches your car, he's deciding whether he wants to go further with it. I know you don't want to hear it, but that's the way it goes. So you can turn him around. So teach our young people. And then the last thing is get our young people engaged in other things. And it doesn't have to be only football and basketball. Like I tell you, I started a chess club and these little black kids are pumped about that. So we need to get them involved. They're looking for somebody to care about them. And if they're from a tough neighborhood and they don't have that, then we need to give it. And as black men, that's the role we're supposed to play. That's what I had in New York growing up. Black men in the neighborhood that cared about us. They could tell you, boy, stop that. Well, that's what's missing. So that's my advice. Get involved.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Sydney, got 1 minute, Sydney.
Doc, I'd like to talk with you after the show. And Brother Lampkins, Harold, I'd like to stir this thing a little tighter, because the information is important that we keep it moving and not just to have this little small time to talk. But the real solution, the real ultimate solution is that we are not talking enough to each other so that we can empower and improve and extend what we need to do in our communities. Yeah, young people, like Jeffrey says, young people are vulnerable to listen. They are vulnerable to be corrected, but we need to introduce them to how racism operates. Just like we on this show, you got to show them accountability of how the young brother in Alabama whose life was beat up. You got to show them these things. They believe in what they see, not so much in a whole bunch of riffraff. So I believe that we can do what we need to do, because if we talk, we have reference to using our power as God has given to us as black men without fear.
Okay. CJ, got the last word, CJ.
Yeah, I agree that it's going to take actual legislation, but we need legislators that aren't spineless to actually pass legislation. We need
That's
more
right.
than kneeling with kente cloth.
That's right.
Is not going to get the job done. We need legislators to actually put out meaningful police reform, which we're not going to get on either side of the aisle with Biden and Kamala Harris in office. So that's another issue. They're going to have to be dragged relentlessly and pushed, and it's going to take community outreach to make it so politically inconvenient for them to not pass legislation that they have to do it, because it's not something that's going to happen from the goodness of their hearts. Like, they're going to try to block progress and keep the status quo the way it is. So again, it's up to us, and police culture is not going to change by itself. We see what the attitude, as Mr. Bell said, a great microcosm of the whole situation. I'm afraid to get out the car. You should be. That is the culture of the police, and they want to rule with fear. They're militarized, and it's going to take legislation and not just simple and reforms and here and there. It's way beyond slight reforms at this point. That's why there are mass calls to defund the police. There ain't no calls to defund the fire department. There ain't no calls to defund, other institutions. The police in general that communities feel terrorized by. So that's what we need to mobilize against.
Okay, I like to go out with this. We start talking about community police, and I work with the man that started it in New York, and that's Murphy. He came down to Washington, D.C., and took over the police department and fire department under, of course, our first Black mayor. He had the roving leaders who I was working with at the time, working with youth gangs. He would meet with us once a month and introduce us to all the cops and say, hey, y'all, you need to work with these guys. And during the riots, he was out in the streets, and I was out there with him because Tillman O'Brien, who was the highest ranking Black in the department, DC at the time, called me down to the station during the riots and gave me a police badge and swore me in. I had to walk out there 3 days with just a police badge. That police badge didn't do anything but get me through the military barricades and the police barricades. I was on my own. You understand? So when you start talking about policing, community policing, I know what community policing is because I had a chance to work with Tillman O'Brien, a guy that got out the station and walked the community. They knew who Tillman O'Brien was. And that's what I'm saying. We don't have that anymore. We need to get them out of these cars, and we need to get these spineless politicians out of office, man. They are the problem. They don't want to be transparent. They're all in there trying to get a dollar bill at any cost necessary. So we got to stand up and come together, man. Just like we got to come together. They keep us apart. As long as they keep us like this, they know they got it. But if we come together like that, they got a problem. So I want to thank, man, all of you guys, man, for taking time to be on this show. And I want to go out with one thing, with Jackie Robinson Day that they just had. I want to go out with that. I want to do this commentary. You know, Washington, D.C. has had some great trailblazing Hall of Fame athletes come out of this town. There's no doubt about it. They are fantastic. We are the only city in America that can claim a public school system that has 4 pro athletes in the Hall of Fame. 4 pro athletes in the Hall of Fame. And I'm talking about Willie Wood and Lynn Ford out of Armstrong High School in the NFL Hall of Fame. I'm talking about Spingarn High School with Elgin Baylor and Dave Bing in the NBA Hall of Fame. But guess what? The common denominator, those 2 high schools no longer exist, which means a loss of our history, man. In nearby Alexandria, Virginia, there was a recent celebration of a statue of NBA pioneer Earl Lord. His likeness is being placed in the Charles Houston Rec Center, which brings me to the celebration of Jackie Robinson Day, Major League Baseball. The late NBA great Red Auerbach said, Jackie Robinson is probably one of the greatest all-around athletes ever. On April 15, 2021, Major League Baseball celebrated Jackie Robinson Day. Hundreds of players paraded around the playing field wearing his trademark number 42. My question, is baseball really integrated? Looking at Major League Baseball today, it is nobody's success story. If you take Jackie's number 42 and let only Black Americans wear it on the field of play, only then will you have an accurate count of how many Black Americans are on Major League Baseball teams. April 15 had been a cover-up for the lack of Black Americans playing in the league. Less than 8% are black, man. Major League Baseball is second richest pro sports league in America, but they have the first lady of Major League Baseball, Jackie's wife, Rachel, on hold while they try to locate financial support to open the Jackie Robinson Museum in New York City. She has been on hold for close to 10 years. Ms. Rachel Robinson is approaching 100 years old. Major League Baseball has to stop faking. The late, great Hank Aaron was not a happy camper with the racism and the good old boys that still run the league. To make things worse, there are too many spooks that still sit by the door. We got brothers pretending there are minority owners, for example. DC's own James Brown, CBS NFL studio host. The learners gave him the ceremony title of being a minority owner. His official duty as a minority owner was carrying the opening day lineup card out to the umpire or being in the opening day announcer reading the starting lineup. As a so-called minority owner, he made no baseball decisions. He was never in the room for the big trade or hiring or firing of personnel. It took me several years to keep reminding James he was being used before he finally went on George Michael's television show and confessed he made no baseball decisions. I have not forgotten how the Lerner brothers disrespected Frank Robinson. Frank was one of the greatest players of all time, but he was also a great manager. When the Lerners took over the Nationals as owners, they made it clear they didn't want him around. Frank didn't forget. He made it clear, and he refused to come back for Frank Robinson Day tribute. He said, no way, you will disrespect me like that. The Lerners later hired Dusty Baker. They were desperate to put a winner on the field on the cheap. He was definitely the man for the job. Dusty took them to 2 straight playoffs, but was victimized by untimely bad hitting and bad pitching in both playoff years. Everybody who knew anything about the game knew that this was a championship team. What did the Lerners do? They fired Dusty. First, they didn't want to pay Dusty and what he was really worth. So they fired him and hired a Hispanic, Dave Martinez, to cover up their racist act. Got him on the cheap. So when they start talking about Jackie Robinson Day, it's the same thing in the public, man. We got spooks that sit behind the door that keep us where we are. And we got to stand up, man. I want to thank you guys once again, man, for taking time out to be here on Speak the Truth. And hey, that's it. I'm Harold Bell, and I'm out of here.
Thank you.
I'll make sure, Sydney and anyone else, I'll make sure, because you wanted to connect with Doc Semper. I'll run that through Mr. Bell, and we'll get all that information to you.
To God be the glory. Stay safe.
All right, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Be good.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate
you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Harold Bell. My wife Hattie and I founded a nonprofit organization in 1968, shortly after the riots that almost destroyed my hometown, Washington, D.C. The program caters to the needs of at-risk children as it relates to social services such as education, law enforcement, drug abuse, gang-related violence, and other antisocial behavior.